Firstly, everyone, thank you for joining. My name is Zoha, and I am the communications lead at Taiba Welfare International Association. We have gathered here today to talk about the World Water Day, which is an international day celebrated for awareing people, for inspiring people for water and sanitation crisis. And this year, the theme that we'll be following is leveraging water for peace, that's set by the UN. A little about ourselves. When we, the organization, the social enterprise Taiba, hold this in resonance with the idea of peace, what we're doing it is that we are making basic ideas of water transportation, of what clean water for drinking, for sanitation, basic human rights accessible to all. And for that, we're focusing on simple yet innovative solutions, integrating technology for social impact. And with that, by 2023, we've impacted over 500,000 lives with clean water and sanitation. Just starting with our discussion, firstly, introducing our esteemed panel today. So, on our panel, we have Dr. Shakeel Hayat, who is an expert for climate change and water governance. He has his master degree in climate change and then water governance PhD from University of Amsterdam. He's affiliated with CVC IM Sciences and now working as a climate change and WASH specialist for Water Aid Pakistan, with other environmental and social safeguard roles at GCF Fund, like Recharge Pakistan Project, etc. And we look forward to having very insightful discussions in terms of water governance with you, sir. Next up, we have Ms. Raazia Anum, who's the Manager of Sustainability at Yunus Textile Mills Limited, Pakistan, who brings experience of environment and sustainability for over 9 years. She's certified as a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, climate leader, and driving innovative change and climate change within this industry. And then we have Kanwal Waqar on the panel, who's a proactive researcher, a capacity development practitioner working for youth and gender and sustainability, and currently with the International Water Management Institute for climate resilience and water resource management. So we see that the panel is designed for three of the core reasons: water governance, gender inclusivity, and sustainability, these factors being intertwined for peace. So starting when we talk about water, so what we're focusing here is that water can spark conflict or it can create peace. And then when we talk about it from a governance aspect, we talk about it from the three levels. We talk about it starting from the root cause in terms of community. So Dr. Shakeel, what do you think? Why is it that water can spark conflict and how is it then creating collaboration for that?
Thank you very much, Zoha. My response to this question would be a kind of two-pronged answer. And that's the thing, that water could lead to a conflict and it can also be a catalyst for cooperation. But if we look into the historical events, a very essential report earlier developed by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, and then Oregon State University did work on that, and they have recorded all the water events in the history, starting from 807 AD till 1984. And they have found out that in this period, around 3,000 transboundary agreements were signed, in contrast to just a few conflictual events. So from this evidence, we can say that water leads to cooperation rather a conflict. But again, we can't just say that whether it's lead to a conflict or cooperation. Of course, there are other elements that we need to consider, and that include, for example, the governance structure among the two or three communities or the countries. Then we need to see the diplomatic efforts. So, for example, if we talk about Pakistan and Afghanistan water issue, or Pakistan, India, we don't have good diplomatic ties with each other. And of course, we would say that water here would lead to a conflict. Third thing is the technological innovations. We can see the transboundary rivers work very well in Europe. We can take an example of Rhine or other transboundary rivers, because all the riparians are technologically sound, financially stable, and a good democratic norms we can witness there. And the fourth one is the societal attitudes. So when I'm talking to you right now, I just give a call to a couple of my cousins, younger cousins, who are studying in government schools in my village. They don't even know about what is this World Water Day. They don't know what's going to happen on the 22nd of March. So we are mainly focusing on like the graduates of LUMS, IBA, IM Sciences, or these kind of institutes. But we didn't even try to touch those people who are not aware of all these kind of things. Once we reach them, once we create these behavioral changes there, then automatically the demand would be increased. Once the demand is increased, we can see very good inclusive institutions that can then drive the relationship among the communities or among the countries. So it's not just conflict and cooperation, but of course we have to see other elements as well.
I definitely agree. And just like building on that, when you talk about like people are not aware even of the day in itself, and then when we move towards peace, why do you think people are not aware? What has been missing? What's the gap that people aren't aware of this?
Well, I would say more than 60% of the population are still living in rural areas. I belong to a rural area. I have studied in government school, and I can tell you honestly that until I came to Islamabad to do my master's and then go to London to do my MBA and then climate governance degree. I didn't know about these commemorating these special days. So the reason is that rural areas are actually ignored by the academician, politicians, and also the decision makers. Rural issues are very complex and no one wants to actually put a hand in these kind of conflict issues. The vote bank is quite weak there. So in my village, it's quite a big village, but you can see hardly 100 or 200 houses are there. But here in Islamabad, if I see just one park tower accommodating around 5,000 people, so then definitely the target of the government or the politicians would be the urban areas rather the rural areas. So that's the main thing.
Yeah, that is definitely the harsh reality that we're facing. And just like building on to that, Ma'am Razia, because you're working in sustainability, you work at water management and infrastructure. We're talking about awareness that's not with the people, but we feel like in the rural area, it probably having not having water to drink or having not clean water to drink has become a norm. People think it's like it's a part of their routine. It is normal for them. Why do you think, why have we normalized it? And when it comes to infrastructure, isn't the conflict or resentment in people stemming from this fact that we have made it normalized from them rather than encouraging that with infrastructure, with our management policies, we have to make it and make them realize that it's their basic human right and not something special or privilege that we're giving to them?
Okay, thank you for having us today. Coming to the question, I think this is the area we have not allocated our budgets investment in particularly to the water infrastructure towards the investment towards improving this clean water and safe drinking water, because a lot of communities which are rural in the rural areas, they are not having the access of clean water, not having the awareness. They are more towards the diseases, water related diseases. So the investment, because we don't have any particular policies, legal framework which exist, and we need a lot of efforts to develop such frameworks to address those challenges in a longer term, because the water shortages we already see in a longer term we will face quite I think we can say quite a lot of next 2 years, 3 years, we will face a lot of things. Not only the industries, communities are facing in industries, what companies are doing, what normally they have to run their operations, they doing illegally water extractions from a lot of resources. There are a lot of water which is theft and providing on a high cost. So industries, they have to run their operations, they are paying high cost and they're getting the water from those resources in a higher cost, and then the product eventually got the high cost. So export oriented, what exactly we are facing, we are also facing the water shortage, but we have also the investment there. I can share one good examples. Yunus have their own effluent treatment plant, and we know we are not taking that much fresh water intake because we have the effluent treatment plant having a good capacity. We are utilizing all the wastewater and reusing back in our facility. 85% to 88% we are reusing in our manufacturing area. Also, we are providing fresh water to the communities. So this is the the responsibility. This is the awareness which we have, and providing a back to the community. The same way which not only the individual as a company, as a government level, this has to be take the ownership towards the water management and water governance. The framework has to be developed to cater these issues.
Definitely, but don't you think like the efforts that are going on with like international agreements that we're signing? I think every time on the 22nd, people would sit down at the UN, they would have conventions, they would talk about like we need to make water accessible to all, we need to do this. Do you think that's helping those international agreements between people maybe having budget? Because even with like Recharge Pakistan, the water stewardship program, like a 22 million billion, we're saying we're doing a lot, we're allocating budget. It's everywhere in the headlines. Is it actually happening? Do you think it's going to help? What's like the narrative? What's your point of view around that?
I think we have to bound some legally aspects. With legally aspects, we have to put some fine to make more accountable and responsible. Currently the agreements which the water stewardship, AWS, there are a lot of WWF, there are a lot of international bodies which regulating some water stewardship certification throughout different countries. Pakistan is one of them. Mostly companies are going through with the certification. That certification is helping to support onboarding the governance part, policy, community, even the internal and external. So we also go through with this certification, and that actually help us to realize how important the water is and how important the community has to access the clean water where we are running our business. Not only us, it's the people and planet. So the international agreements somehow helping most of the companies. In the Punjab side, there are a lot of companies, the agriculture part, they put some investment in the agriculture to irrigation the water and give them the free supply of the water to support the food security, and a lot of things are connecting with one particular water resource. So there is one good element as well. Companies are doing on a different stake. There are a lot of good things are happening, but again, this has to be more regulate in a particular way that not only the discussion, we have some particular actions and policies in line within the that has to be legally bound, so that way companies and the structure will moving forward.
Definitely. I think accountability in this aspect is very important. That is one particular thing that we're missing. Even with like at governance, when we look at the community level, there are a lot of cases that go unreported. Even Dr. Shakeel, Ma'am Kawal, because you work with like gender, you know a lot of issues related to gender. Nobody talks about why there was a sudden spike in suicide rates in Tharparkar. How was it linked to water? Nobody looked at that. Why is the role of a woman reduced to water labor? Why are they carrying water? Nobody talks about that. So when we also like started just like sharing an anecdote, when we started working with H2O, we making water transportation like something very simple, very easy for people. So we started listening to women and they were like, okay, it's a part of our job. We have to wake up at 4 a.m. हमें चल के जाना है, बहुत सारे मील सिर्फ पानी इकट्ठा करना है. It's a part of our routine. उन्होंने इसको इतना normalize कर लिया हुआ था, and then they would tell issues like having clay pots of how that stress or how that pain would travel to their lower back, and nobody talks about it. A lot of women die because of that. A lot of women face miscarriages because of that, but those issues get unreported. So Ma'am Kanwal, when you look at it from this perspective, when you look at it from gender perspective, all of these cases that go unreported, how do you think that links to with water and peace together? Are we looking at peace from a community level as well? Are we going to the root causes, or are we just talking about the water wars that are happening or the international agreements that are not coming into action? How do you look at the root cause for this?
Thank you so much, Zeba, for inviting us here. And it's a very good discussion I heard from Dr. Shakeel and then Razia's perspective. So my perspective, I'll be talking from the community perspective because I have a lot of experience of working with the different communities, from mountains to plain, from GB to Punjab and to Sindh and to all other areas. So for me, I really like the point highlighted by Dr. Shakeel that governance is the key element. When our governance are structured, they don't understand that what does gender equity means, what does social inclusion means, and why do we need it? We cannot change anything. Yes, we have policies. We have national water policy. We have water acts, KP Water Acts, Punjab Water Act, so many other water acts. We have so many other policies. But have you ever tried to look on those policies from the gender perspective or from the social inclusion perspective? Yes, we have a national gender policy recently, National Gender Act. We have some part in our climate change policy about gender inclusion. But how? This is the point. We just understand this buzzword of gender inclusion, but we don't know how to do it. We don't create any roadmap, any strategies to target these marginalized group in the community. Sharing towards this water stress or water conflict story, as you mentioned, Zoha, there are so many studies that this is the responsibility of women and young girls to manage the household water. They have to travel long distances, and this is also reported that majority of young girls, the school dropout rate is increased day by day. Why? This is the reason. Because it's her responsibility, and that's what given to her from the stereotypical patriarchal society that you have to do this work, and it's her routine work. But whenever we make any decisions at community level with regard to water governance, with regard to water management, with regard to any water conservation strategies, we only target male group of the community. We don't look at the other aspects of the community. Okay, say if you have to go in the community, you have to give the water filtration, you have to install the water filtration plant or something like this kind of thing. Our departments, our organizations, our policymakers, think tank, they do ever try to do the gender analysis of particular area? They ever try to understand that what particular situation is going on there, what particular problem those women or young girls are facing? No. We are only applying the lens of gender equality in water sector, in agriculture sector, in all other sectors. But this is the time to understand gender equity. Why we are only focusing on equality? Without equity, you cannot achieve the equality. So this is the fact. And I really agree with Dr. Shakeel that awareness, capacity building, and sensitization is the key for success to everything. Yes, we are sitting at the higher up positions. We are making policies, we are making plans, we are making projects for the communities, but we don't know their real challenges because we don't have the awareness and sensitization. We are doing so many things. I wanted to highlight here just as a donor-driven agenda, but we don't want to understand that what actual our problem is and how we can tackle the situation. So for this, the first and prime most thing is capacity building and sensitization at all levels, from top to down. And let me also share one more example from the communities that in the Water User Association, I had a discussion with a female member of the Water User Association, and I talked to her and I said that, okay, do you know that what water challenges are you facing in your community and what is going to happen in the next 5-10 years with regard to the climate change? And she said, this is not my responsibility. This is the responsibility of male member of the house. He is the one who should know about all these things. I am not allowed to interfere in such matters. So we are still in this age, and we have to start from this age. Yes, these international agreements, these protocols, everything is important for us. We are signatory to them, but only signatory is not the key to success. Thank you.
Definitely. And I think one important thing when you go and talk to such people and when you ask them about, you've been doing this, like, why do you do this? Maybe when you ask about the why, that is probably the only time in their lifetime they would actually self reflect and see, okay, why am I doing this? Do I have like another option to do this? So even when we were trying to replace the clay pots with H2O wheels, they were questioning the H2O wheel. No, we're not going to change our routine. Why do we carry this wheel? No, we need to have a pot on our head. That's like a routine that they've embraced. So that's coming from not having enough sensitization, not having enough awareness of what you're doing is not how it is supposed to be. The water is your basic right. It should be available to you. So I think yes, that governance at the community level I think is very important. And Dr. Shakeel, because you worked at water governance level at different, when you look at the community in particular, and because you just mentioned that you come from a place, so you've seen these very close to you, so you've seen these issues at hand. Why do you think these issues, firstly, how are they intertwined? Because like when we interact, we see how it's not just the gender, it's something that's linked with their income, it's linked with their productivity, it's their mental health, it's their physical health, it's a life issue. That is why we call water is life. There is an intertwined issue for this. So when you hear water is life, when you look at it from a governance aspect at different levels, how do you perceive this? What how do you think they're linked? How are they impacting each other?
Thank you, Zoha. So I'll break this question again into different pieces. And first, I'll start with the Malthus narrative, a very famous narrative in the 18th century, that as the population will increase, we'll see a lot of scarcity of the resources, not just water, but many other natural resources as well. But then in 20th century, we got the cornucopian perspective, and which says that organizations like Taiba Foundation or H2 will be there, who will do some social innovations, and that they will bring something to the table that can actually be tackling the scarcity issues and all the challenges. And this perspective was based on the post-industrial revolution that we saw. Mm, I remember my grandfather, because I believe a lot on the indigenous knowledge. I very strongly belong to the community. So my grandfather used to tell me that we had 500 acres of land, and it wasn't sufficient to feed a family of like 10 or 15 members. And then as the time passes, my grandfather, my father sold it out, and now we have like 50 acres of land. So we have now a bigger family of like 35 or 40 people. And this 50 acre is feeding them. Plus, we get surplus that we sell out in the market that is used for education of all of us. So as the time passes, we see that with innovations, with technologies, with inclusion, especially the communal perspective, when it's included in these kind of narratives or policies or practices, then conflict would be taken. Now, when we talk about the inclusiveness, the social inclusiveness, as Kanwal mentioned, so for us, the gender inclusiveness means just counting the numbers, that 50% of the female would be a part of the National Assembly or Provincial Assembly. But we should know that inclusive development doesn't start with just social inclusiveness. It needs to be ecological inclusiveness and relational inclusiveness. So by social inclusiveness, we just build their capacity and include them in the system. But with ecological inclusiveness, we build their capacity that there is a limit to the natural resources. You should know that the resources are depleting, and it's not just the men that would be responsible, but you and your future generation would also be responsible for this. And third is the relational inclusiveness, which is that how she can break this power cycle, how she can break these power chains and can become a part of the decision making process. So I'm not just counting the problems, but I'm contributing towards the solution. In the last 5 years, I've secured a grant of 5 million USD from the Asian Development Bank, which is just to mainstream gender in the water and climate sector, or broadly, I would say wash in the climate sector. And this was based on my own perception that in my house, if there is nothing wrong in this. I have my own responsibility. My wife has her own responsibility, and my mother has her own responsibility. But since my childhood, I don't remember when the last time I turned on the motor pump, when the last time I put the water in the dispenser, when the last time I cooked food. So my mother, my sister, my daughter is doing all this for me. So if she is doing water management at household level and keeping the whole household happy, like, I can imagine if one day there is no cold water in the fridge, then of course she'll bear the disproportionate impact of this kind of household level scarcity. She'll be screamed. Everyone will be angry with her. So if she has such a strong role in this water management, then why not she's a part of our VASAs? Why not she's a part of the TMAs? Why not she's a part of the Indus Water Commission or ERSA? So I have started this mission. I did the situation analysis in all the water and climate sector. And I came to know that less than 1% females are working in this sector. So I designed a program that it shouldn't be just an internship. I'll first theoretically educate them. In my university, I'll tell them to sit with my students and you will read these specialized modules. After 6 months, when they study all these theories, then I'll involve them in all my projects so that they can learn the practicalities. And I think Raazia is from the textile sector. I have a very successful story. There is a lady called Noreen from Hunza. I trained her in this program, and she's the now senior sustainability and climate change manager in the APTMA, Al Pakistan Textile Mill Association. There are so many working in VASAs. There are so many workings in the urban development agencies, Lahore Development Authority, CDA and PDA. So we all can do these kind of efforts. Once the gender equality comes, once we see the equality in terms of the responsibilities in all these sectors, in terms of the service provision, we can see that the situation will be getting better rather getting worse, despite the fact that we'll be living in a water scarce era. But she will, her innovative ideas will propose solutions for that. Sorry for the long answer.
No, no, that was very interesting because, like, I think that's the perspective that we all hold as well. Okay, we're looking at gender inclusion, we're looking at women empowerment projects, but then women don't know what's happening for them. What are you proposing? Women are not in the process, so it's very important that we start involving them in the process and not just make the solution. Okay, we did it for you. So you need to like make it very, yeah.
And sorry to add one thing. My target for this program, I did this for ADB for 255 fresh graduates, irrespective of the discipline. They shouldn't be from environmental sciences or water governance, even if they have studied Islamic studies, and if they have a passion to join this sector, it's for them. And now I'm doing the same in WaterAid as a professional development program. I piloted here, and now I secured a very big grant from the British Council to take it to all the 4 provinces.
Okay, that's wonderful. I think a big applause for you. Congratulations on doing that, because I think it is when we have to like collaborate for people who need it the most. So I think that is where the passion and the drive comes from. I think, Ma'am Kanwal, you would love to add on this, because this is like a topic that's very close to you when it comes to gender, when it comes to problems that are being faced by women, and also Ma'am Razia, because I remember Taiba and Yunus Textiles have done a project as well, and that was also with female-headed household. So when we talk about gender, and then we noticed in terms of they had good socio-economic perspectives, they were improved. We had good numbers in terms of income. So, for example, let's just talk about if Yunus Mills were to design a project. What aspects do you look at when you talk about, like, we're going to give water? Do you just see that they're going to get drinkable water, or do you look at other aspects that maybe now they'll have more time so they can work on innovative ideas? Do you actually have this, or is it the result that comes as a surprise later, that how water has transformed them? So how do you look at it when you're making your project?
Okay, the most important part is not only the employees, not only the communities, the employees and workers who are working for us and a part of community. They are the first priority for a company, and that every time negligible by the company. So we address through some awareness session, one-to-one session with the nearby communities. We sorted our employees and we got the feedback, what they actually think about the company is doing in the water, what issues they are facing in terms of the water challenges, how they are proceeding with the water, they are facing the shortage, they don't have the good food security, and all the things which are interlinked with the water. So this idea we have implemented, and we surprised to know the great feedback we received from through this activity, and through that feedback we developed our projects. The gap assessment was there. We developed our small project, how we can emphasize and we can take some initiatives to improve their livelihoods. So we work on that particular areas. There are a lot of small projects we received from the community, that some tap waters are not working in some public areas. There are some areas where the government roles are there. So we actually play a bridge between the community and other stakeholders, and we jointly collaborate. Even other the companies join collaboration on different projects that helps to mitigate those challenges. Some of the projects, like mostly companies in the textile area, we have a lot of wastewater, and sometimes communities are facing, because the line losses, the line disruptions, sometimes communities face these challenges throughout their the day. So what exactly we bring? We jointly collaborate with different, the stakeholders within the companies, and we sort out the issues. How? Because the rainfall issues, we are facing a lot of rain, and through that rain, we have a lot of issues on the road, our water clogging. So we work on that part that eventually help the industry as well as the community. So there are a lot of projects which we have done. So this is few of the areas which I just explained, and a lot of things which towards the livelihood and the governance part, which we are making some drivers and allocating some. These projects are in progress. Hopefully, in the next couple of years, we will find out more projects towards this journey, and collaborate more with the NGOs, with the different stakeholders towards the benefit of the community. Eventually, we have to reflect back to the community towards a good cause.
Definitely. I think that's very important to understand how enterprises, together with the social sector and together with the community, they have to come together for this. I think when we're talking about issues, I think very different and very unique perspectives of how, when Dr. Shakeel talks about it from a very raw, from a very how personal level. And when you talk about it, you talk about it from a very infrastructure. So we see how the gaps are there. So there are gaps at the community level, at an individual level, and then how they at the enterprise level as well. When we're talking about pipelines, we're talking about management issues, we're talking about technological issues. So those gaps are very important. And just, I think, building on those gaps, Ma'am Kanwal, how do you think, what sort of projects need to be designed when we talk about covering these gaps at the communal level? And then what sort of help or bridge would the enterprise could bring into that, so that when we're creating a project that's inclusive, and then that is when we talk about peace, that is when we talk about different stakeholders coming together. So how do you look at it in terms of building projects, in terms of including everyone?
Thank you, Zoha. So I'll first I wanted to share that in our organization, International Water Management Institute, what we are doing is that yes, we are working on this water issues and water solutions through various technologies, but we are trying to link these technologies with the communities. And how we are doing it is that if I share my experience, then we start each and every intervention. Before the start of every intervention, we do a gender analysis. We look at the area where we are going and where we are setting up this innovation or technology. So we can understand that what gender dynamics or roles or responsibilities are already existing in that area. And then after understanding these dynamics, we design our initiatives, we design our technologies, that how best it could give benefit to the different segments present in the society. And these gender norms or these culture, these cannot be changed overnight. So you need to have a gender transformative approach. In such kind of approaches, you need to understand that, yes, one more example I wanted to share here is that while going to the various government institutions, while talking to the different communities, farmer groups, water user association groups, I had a discussion with the higher ups, very senior person sitting in the agriculture department, in the water management department, in the planning and all that. So when I talk to them and I say that, what do you understand by the gender inclusion, or what do you mean by gender inclusivity? So they just say that we know we should include women. And as already Dr. Shakeel mentioned, that it doesn't mean that we just have to include the women. It's about understanding the whole system. So here comes the role of these private enterprises. Here comes the role of the people like Dr. Shakeel. Here comes the role of the organization like us. That we need to change this perspective. We need to change this thought through our gender transformative approaches, through our approaches of collaborating, discussing, coordination with the male head of the households, male people sitting in the institutions, male people who are, you can say, holding the main decision-making power in these institutions. And as already mentioned, Dr. Shakeel, that in the youth, majority of the young girls and women, they are only 1% is in the water sector. Why? Because, it's a myth. I will say it's a myth that women cannot understand the technology, or she's not able to handle the technology or the technical things. What we are doing in IMI, what we are doing in an organization is that we are going deep into the communities. We are trying to dig out the success stories for other women. We have targeted the female farmers who are doing their whole agriculture by themselves. They are holding the large agriculture lands of 50 acres, 60 acres. They have employed 20, 30 female farmers on their land. We are bringing them in our working group meetings, in our decision-making tables, in our meetings where we are discussing about the technologies, about the replication of these technologies on the agriculture field, on the agriculture land. Why? These are the success stories for all other women, farmers who are working in the sector, not only the farmer, in each and every sector. If, as Raazia just mentioned about a very good story of the women who are working in this sector. So this kind of success stories we need to bring up, and these can you can say that bridge these gaps, and then act as a catalyst. Yes, and we can change this norm that no, these technology or these technical things are only limited to the one segment of the society. It should give benefit to each and everyone present in the society.
Definitely. And I think how this conversation has streamed towards gender inclusivity shows how it's very close to us and how critical it is when talking about basic human rights. So I think reverting back a little to about water and how you mentioned about we think that women cannot handle technology. So just like sharing an anecdote from Taiba, so we recently did a pilot project with blockchain technology. So that was also focused on easing the access to water in terms of its efficiency. So for example, when a disaster has struck, so people can access water easily. And that was also targeted towards female-headed households. So those 100 households, they handled digital wallets. They access aid through blockchain. So technology in itself is a very nascent space, Web3, when we talk about blockchain. A lot of people are not aware of it, what they're doing. So those women are getting into it. They're understanding it. They're receiving aid through it. They're getting the resources. So I think that highlights a lot about the potential of women when we talk about and potential of these communities as a whole of how if you're giving them the opportunities, if you're creating a pathway for them and helping them out, because you need to create some sort of foundation, you're bringing them together. So I think just like reverting a little back to in terms of water, I think you wanted to add something to that, ma'am Kavya?
I
Yeah,
Yes,
sure, sure.
I wanted to add if I'm allowed to do so.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, you talked about the technology. It's another debate.
Mm.
Access to technology is another issue. I just wanted to share another example that we had a chance to discuss with the migrant communities who were the flood affected migrant communities from the Punjab side. And we were looking at around the digital innovation, the digital technologies. Did they play any role in the migration? Did they build any resilience towards the communities? And the interesting point is that majority of females says that we don't own mobile phone. We are not allowed to own mobile phone, and if we have to make any call or if we have to do anything, we have to do it in front of the male member of the household. So here comes the gender division of access to digital technology, where we need to understand that yes, technology is there, but benefit of technology to each and everyone is not equal.
Yeah, definitely. I think just like building onto that, when we also did this pilot, so it was for 100 female-headed households, and only 30 out of them had access to mobile phones. And also the ones that had, they would share that it's with the men of the house, and when they would return in the evening, that is when we'd have access to it. So okay, we can get water then. So I think just like in terms of accessing that, how difficult that has become. So like talking about, we've talked about how these issues have stemmed and everything. So there's this concept of water diplomacy, like hydro diplomacy. We need to solve these issues. We need to get together. 70% of the earth is water. Let's save our planet. So all of these perspectives, all of these interests, when we talk about them, Dr. Shakeel, what do you think? What role is water diplomacy? Is it effectively implemented? Have we understood this concept? And do you think, particularly in the context of Pakistan, do people understand it? Would they be okay with the idea? How are they going to look at it?
Thank you, Zoha. Well, here comes the critical question. um, well, if we talk about the water diplomacy, then we need to talk about the national security as well. Uh, Unfortunately, Pakistan has become a security-sized state where we have security-sized everything, whether it's water, whether it's food, whether it's politics, every single thing. So you may have seen the historical conflict between Jordan, between Israel, between Syria, Ethiopia. But when they decided that we need to find a way for cooperation, then all those 18 riparians of the Nile, they got united and they have drafted an agreement. So we have the same thing. When the 1965 war started, um, just after a week of that war, a meeting was organized between the Indus Water Commission Pakistan and Indus Water Commission India, and the meeting took place during the war. So for water diplomacy, it's not essential that you always may have brotherly relation, you always may have good ties with each other. If you have a conflict with Afghanistan, if you have a conflict with India, then put that issues on one side and sort out the water issues on other side, because water is essential for us and water is essential for them. Another thing, that there was a seminar organized by, I think, MEA in NDU, National Defense University, some couple of years ago, and where most of the army officials were there. And they were all talking about that Afghanistan is building cascade dams on the Kunal River, and it will disrupt the flow of Kabul River to Pakistan. So we are thinking to divert the water from the Kabul River and put it in the Panchkola River. And I strongly oppose that. And I face the consequences of that letter as well. The thing was, I told them it's not an issue between Kabul and Islamabad. It's the life and death issues of 7 million Pashtun population, ethnic population living in this region. They are uh, like relying on the water of the Kabul River for agriculture development, for industrial development, for domestic use, for water recharge and everything. So when we want to talk about the water, we shouldn't forget the population, the gender, as well as all the ecological system. We call it the best approach, biodiversity and ecosystem services approach. You know, there was a very famous study by an Australian professor, Costanza, in 2013. He did the evaluation of the provisioning ecosystem services of the water. In 2013, the value of the provisioning ecosystem services was $113 trillion. So $113 trillion were required to provide drinking water to every single person in the world. While at that time, the global GDP, including all the Annex 1 and Annex 2 country, was just $77 trillion. So the world didn't have even sufficient money to provide drinking water to the people in this world. And then you may start counting the food, then industry, and then other things. So when we talk about the water diplomacy, we should not just focus on this one stream of river where the water is flowing. We need to focus on the whole ecological system. How many population are directly or indirectly dependent on this? How many plants, animal, mining, tourism? We need to consider all kind of ecological services when we talk about the water diplomacy. But recently, in Pakistan, everyone was crying, especially the water expert, that India has completely diverted the Ravi to India, and we should do something for this. I think this was the case. We lost on Baglehar and Kishan Ganga, that we just spoke about the water. We didn't talk about the ecological system, the ecological flow. You know that there is a in the principle of international water law that any river, wherever it originates, it should reach the ocean. So in our case, Indus River doesn't reach the ocean now until and unless it's flooding. It finishes around 150 kilometers earlier because of the illegal diversion of water to those areas which are not a part of even. So we have done a lot of mistakes ourselves. Rather doing herding of water in the delta region, we build the barrages there to bring water to one location so that they can feed the powerful elites there, the feudal lords there, and to provide water to the powerful industry in Karachi. They didn't count the human, they didn't count the flora and fauna of the deltas. And that's the reason that till now around 120,000 hectare area have been eroded to the ocean because the water is not reaching to Keti Bandar. Karochan, Keti Bandar, it used to be creeks, Sar Creek, the water border between Pakistan and India. You have to go by boat now. A creek mean that it should be connected through a road, but there is no road now because the ocean is coming forward. It's depleting your existing resources. So there is still time that we need to focus on all kind of issues. We should put the political issues on a side, and we need to prioritize to sort out the water issues and draft an agreement as soon as possible.
Definitely, and I think just like a very something that's very close to us in recent days, and very heartbreaking as well, the Gaza and Israel conflict that's been happening. Even in that of how they're weaponizing water, their children. So, as per the UNICEF report, in times of emergencies, you need at least like 15 liters of water to survive. And there, they have less than 1.5 liters. So 1.5 and 15. So I think what we're doing is that we're considering wars, we're considering politics superseding the basic human rights. So I think, yes, when we talk about resolving issues, we need to talk about human, we need to talk about life, of how that's independent rather than what sort of political or weaponizing gains we're getting through it. Yeah, please do
Yeah,
continue.
and another main issue is, the water management and governance at the multiple geographic level in Pakistan is very poor, and that's why we put a blame directly on our neighbors, Afghanistan, Iran, or India. So we first need to improve the water management and governance within the country. Then we should talk about the water diplomacy or making water relation with our neighbor. I'll give you one quick example. You know, uh, population of Pakistan is around 240 million people, and if we count the 100 liters per person per day as under the Human Rights Declaration, so it's become around 24 billion probably liters of water. Karachi is a big city, around 30 million population is there, and the total need of the Karachi is 1200 million gallons daily. But we can see conflict in Karachi. Why not we are doing the water treatment, as Razia mentioned, that they are 100% utilizing the wastewater. So at least if you are not using it for drinking, you can use it for cooling purposes, you can use it for plants, you can use it for car washing, you can use it for even for agriculture. But it's a harsh reality that hardly 3% of the wastewater is treated in Pakistan, and all remaining water goes directly into the rivers, depleting our limited freshwater resources. So if we improve the water management and the water treatment system within the country, within the provinces, we would release the pressure on the international water resources. Automatically, when the pressure is released, you create an enabling environment for the countries to sit and sort out water issues.
100%. I think this is something that has to start from us first, and then we need to move ahead of understanding what treaties are saying, what sort of collaborations do we need to make. And I think just building on that, Ma'am Razia, you work with sustainability. I think one important thing in this is whatever sort of infrastructure we're building, whatever sort of investment that we're doing, we need to make sure it's sustainable. It's not here just for 1 to 2 years, but for lifetime for those people. So, how do you look at it from that perspective? And how do you think in Pakistan, particularly, do we need to make these investments in these infrastructures for basic rights like water sustainable? How do we do that?
Okay, it's a very important and good question. Recently, the globally, few legally legislations are passed, and everyone is working towards net zero 2050, race to zero. These are the legally, somehow it's not 100% implemented, but they are enforcing all the companies has to take a part on this initiative, and they have to prove. Majority of the Pakistani companies are working towards net zero. Some of the companies are also working towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2030. So all these, what exactly the bat is, they all are the quantify or whatever we are doing to for the manufacturing, either in energy, water, anything which we are incorporating as an input, that has to be a sustainable element to reduce the climate change impact. So the climate is not only the energy or one particular area's water. It's a huge manufacturing impact, whole manufacturing impact from the raw till the export, everything incorporating in this value change part of the climate change. And climate change eventually impact in terms of heavy rainfall, in terms of very, very water scarcity. It's like interlinked with every chapter. So, I can incorporate that mostly companies already install the, mitigating those challenges of rainwater. We saw 30 million people of Pakistan in 2022 was displaced from the rainwater, from the heavy rain fall we receive in 2022. So a lot of infrastructure we destroy. So there is a challenges as well as the solution. Rain harvesting mechanism can be installed in every company, household to save the rainwater, because now onwards we are facing a lot of rain disturbance and rain variance in the next couple of years. We will see but we always going forward for the reactive approach. And I think proactive approach has to be implemented. Execute actions are key and louder. So we need to focus on our actions towards to mitigate these challenges. And again, United Nations 2030, United Nations goals are also towards the water, life underwater, are bounding or companies to claim the good actions. They have set some actions, companies and individually, uh, pledged those United Nations goals towards they are doing a lot of good. So, there's whatever you are doing good, there is a recognition as well. You can, align those actions with some international goals, and you can showcase towards a global. We are also representing a lot of good initiatives to the global brands. So, they know the products which we are producing, having a good elements, having the life cycle assessment, every water, wastewater, energy emissions, all the things are implementing. So Pakistan is also doing a lot of things in the manufacturing part, and that export globally, Europe, USA. So the manufacturing is very, very important towards sustainable element, because after, if companies are not aligning their goals with respect to this, they will be out of the competition, because the emission quantification is very important, and ESG is our next tool, which sustainability reporting, everyone is asking, globally brands, legally, Europe, European legislation. So somehow these things are good for companies where governance, where the awareness of what new rules and regulations, and how companies can shift or transform them to to develop the goals. If they have the baseline and they are not doing any sustainable materials incorporating in their inventory, so they can think beyond, after because ESG is something you are year to year, you are representing your emissions, your numbers publicly or not publicly, but this metrics help to set some targets and help to companies and others to make more accountability towards this.
Definitely. And I think that's like how we have to take small steps to achieve something big. So even with like net zero, new concept, new idea, starting small, but taking that initiative is important, be it coming from any sort of a social sector, be it coming from the enterprises. So I think taking that initiative towards sustainability is important. And then we talk about taking it to long term. So I think that is, yes, please do continue.
One more good initiative, Net Zero already doing, like we are talking about the awareness. We are talking about how, it's not only one company is doing export and all. This help us to understand how we can help our upstream and downstream suppliers and brands to understand those challenges. Those suppliers who are providing us their accessories, their materials to us, they should understand the water scarcity, emission, and energy. So we are taking this responsibility and guiding them and aware them how they can, understand the importance and contributing and quantify their data, especially starting from the data, and then the next step is the developing goals, how they can, to remain in the competition. So this is what we textile and other sectors are taking initiative to develop the supplier development. The initiative is supplier development programs, and that actually helps sub-suppliers to develop a good sustainable bridge between companies and suppliers.
Definitely. I think I personally really like when like enterprises talk about competition and taking competitive advantage in terms of sustainability, in terms of green infrastructure, in terms of helping people. I think that is the sort of competition and sort of targets that enterprises should be setting. So I think wonderful work in that regard. I think, ma'am, Kanwal, like moving to the role of youth for this, because you're a youth specialist as well. I think youth has a lot of responsibility for this, in Pakistan being the fifth most youth populous country. What do you think? What sort of role can youth come up to it when we talk about basic human rights, and especially when we talk about the strata gap? So when we talk about innovation, So innovation not only stemming from the top or stemming from the students or youth that's educated, but also how they can encourage and pave path for involving people from the other stratas as well into this collaborative effort. So what sort of role can youth play for this?
Thank you, Zoha. First of all, you know what? We need an integrated approach. It's time to think proactively rather than going to the reactive approach. And in this, if we talk about the youth involvement and youth engagement, then the companies like Raazia is running, Dr. Shakeel, what he is doing. It's our part to engage youth. Whatever research we are doing, we should involve or engage academia. And this is the way, this is the time and the way to build their capacity and to utilize their innovative solutions toward the problem. Also, when we talk about that youth engagement in tech or in different innovations or in different programs, then I strongly believe that we need to have these youth initiatives or programs within the universities. And not only in the big universities like Lahore, Islamabad, Rawalpindi, or like this, but we should go towards these rural areas. As Dr. Shakeel mentioned, we need to go to these places, target those youth, especially again, I'll talk about the young girls who have a lot of innovative ideas, lot of innovative solutions, but they don't have the voice to say and they don't have the platform to share their knowledge. Most of the time when we talk to the young people, they say that we don't know from where we can get this information. Even they don't know about this. So this is where the role comes. We need to educate them about different platforms, about different locations where they can get the information about their future career paths and all these things. And another thing I wanted to mention here is about the linking up the innovative startups like the wastewater utilization. It's a big, you can say, a challenge for the country like us. So I have seen from my eyes the women and the girls, they are washing the hand with the wastewater, and this is, and when I talk to them and says this, okay, I'm going to have my food and then I'm washing my hand with the water, and I said, do you think this water is safe for you to wash the hands? And they don't have this level of awareness and understanding. So these need to come up with a collaborative effort and a collaborative integrated approach.
Definitely. I think when we even talk about it from different levels in terms of governance, in terms of accountability, in terms of gender inclusion, all of this has to come together to create a bigger impact. I think very diverse, very unique perspectives, different ways of tackling through it. So we'd now like wrap up the conversation. If you want to like express it in a few words in terms of how water for peace, and then how do you take that integrated approach? So how do you bring the two together? So water for peace. How for peace? Now, I think let's just wrap up our conversations and give our closing remarks for that in terms of like an insightful discussion for people to take up later. So I think Dr. Shakeel can start with you. Yeah.
Well, as everyone say, I would say that again, that water is life, and we all love our lives. We all love the lives of the humanity, and everyone should have equal access to water, and everyone should have the responsibility to equally manage it.
Definitely. I think anyone can go next. Now, Raazia, you can go next. Yeah.
Okay. I think water is a very basic part, and we never know the worth of water till the well is dry. So the right time is today, and current to align our actions towards, towards the safety and for the future, for the community, and for everyone.
Yes, as water is life, and nothing is possible without the water. So we should conserve water and take baby steps from our household, even educating our kids, even educating our family and our neighbors. So save water for our future generation. Definitely.
I think this conversation has been so stirring and motivating and inspiring for me. So thank you so much for each and one of you for joining us for H2O for Peace. I think we got to learn a lot, and with this motivation, with tomorrow, 22nd, let's come together, and not just on the 22nd. I think this is a basic right that should be talked about every second and every minute. We should feel about it. Of our privileges, of people who are not having it, how to make it equitable and for everyone. So once again, thank you so much for joining. It was a very insightful discussion, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zoha.
Thank you.